Hi, my name is Wesley Holland, and I would just like to give a little bit of a tribute to Dr. Marberry. I was a Hillsdale student. It's now Randall, of course, but I was a Hillsdale student from 95 to 99. I was a missions major, and at least at that time, theology and missions programs overlapped a lot, and so I ended up seeing Dr. Marberry a lot. I saw him more than I saw Dr. Banks, in fact, and because I was a Greek major, a Greek minor, excuse me, I saw him even more. The fact is, over the years that I was there, I saw him probably 2 to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 years. And in my estimation, that makes him my primary discipler. Over the course of my lifetime, I can't think of anybody who poured into my life hour for hour more than Dr. Marberry did. And he was a great discipler. He was a great teacher. His broad knowledge of the field of theology was impressive, but also his ability to think on the practical level and to be moved by the day-to-day life of Christianity. He was always impressive in the classroom, turning his pages. He's lecturing to us and he's turning pages because he's memorized these pages of notes. He wasn't even really looking at his notes, but he turned them even though he wasn't really even looking at them. And he was quoting people and historians and theologians from the past just from memory all the time. And yet in chapel, I remember him preaching, and he was never preaching to impress with his theological knowledge. He was really just looking at the passage, interpreting the passage, and relating the Bible to our real lives, even being moved himself. I remember, at first you think of him as just this theology machine, but I remember him getting choked up in chapel talking about the generosity of this church sending a student to Hillsdale years before, and it moved him. There was a lot of emotion in him, and that made you want to please him as a student. Not that he was not pleasable, but he had high standards. If you were in Greek class especially, if you butchered a verse or a sentence or something like that, he would just sort of chuckle and say, "You gave it the good old college try, but let's go back and smooth that out." So he was very generous to us in our feeble attempts to use Greek, and he wasn't impossible to please. If you did please him, if you did get the answer right, if you did answer a question correctly, he had this way of affirming you by saying, "You are exactly right." And I remember that arm movement, and then that long arm that he had. And we were in a small classroom, but he would come out, and you'd almost think he was about to touch your nose, but "You were exactly right." And he was great at affirming whenever you got it right. Of course, when you got it wrong, or especially if you showed that you weren't even trying, he would give you the thumbs down. And I knew of a guy who even got the double thumbs down one time, and it'll scar you for life if that happens. Because you wanted to please him, you wanted to do well by him, because you knew he was giving it all, his all for you. I really appreciate his commitment to Hillsdale and Randall. He really, I don't know if he got offers, but he could have moved on to very well-known seminaries, and yet he stayed with our humble little university for his entire career. And I appreciate that about him so much, that he chose to be an impact at a small college and for his denomination. I'm also glad that in his lifetime he got to see Baylor have a good program, a good football program. But the number one thing that I think that I would want to say about him is, he and Wilma, I'm very sorry for your loss. They never had children, except that I would say this: they have many sons. They have many sons out there filling pulpits across the nation. I'm in Maine now, and even across the world. Sons who looked to him and went into the family business of being teachers of the Word of God. And his impact will be felt for generations after him. And he has done well He was a good and faithful servant, and I know that the Lord believes he has done well. And I look forward to seeing him again someday. And I take great comfort in that all the mysteries of theology to him now are answered. And he has seen now the one that he has been studying all of his life, getting to know all of his life. And all questions are answered. All joy is fulfilled. And he is experiencing greater worship than we can possibly imagine, but which is laid up for us one day as well. I will miss you, Dr. Marberry, and I thank the Lord for your humble service to my life.